India is the third largest automobile market globally, contributing a remarkable 7.1% to our nation's GDP. As we navigate the future of the automobile and mobility industry, let us deep dive into discussions on electric vehicles, passenger and commercial vehicles, ancillaries and infrastructure, policy and regulations. Industry pioneers and thought leaders will unite to explore the future at the second edition of Republic Digital Roundtable Mobility Revolution, pioneering the next auto era. Only on Republic Digital.
Of industry experts who will share their insights on the evolving landscape of passenger and commercial vehicles. Yes, with me in the studio right now is Rajiv Rawat, an automotive veteran with extensive experience in sales and marketing across major brands. Ashok Vashisht, founder and CEO of Wise Travel India Limited. Anu Patil, co-founder and CEO of Entangles Lab Private Limited. And Akshay Shekhar, who continues with us in this discussion. He is the co-founder and CEO of Kazam. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here today. And as we begin with this discussion, I'd like to start with the macro picture first, when we're talking about passenger and commercial vehicles. Now, Rajiv, coming to you, you're an automotive veteran and you have experience with major brands like Tata Motors and Volkswagen. With the kind of trends that you're witnessing at this point, how would you describe the passenger vehicle market and the way the consumer preferences are shaping up?
Well, the preferences among the buyers nowadays, which I can see, is definitely the safety, safety of the cabin. Then it's come to the comfort, which is the another aspect, which the preference of the customer. And I would say that the features of the vehicle. These are the three factors which consumers are looking at this point of time. Definitely, the preference is for the space. I mean, overall cabin space and the ground clearance. That is another factor. And you will see that most of the SUVs at this point of time, they are fulfilling these requirements, and that is the reason. That's why the most of the SUVs, this mid-size SUVs like Harrier, Creta, and the coupe newly launched by Stellantis, or maybe the coupe by Tata Motors, like Curve, they are fulfilling these all requirements of the customers. And at this point of time, what happened? The vehicle is not only used only for the short distance; it's being used by the families for longer distance, where safety is a major factor. That is one of the deciding factor, which is in the consideration of the family once they are buying the vehicle. So that is where it all, and also I would say the manufacturer like Tata Motors, thanks to them that they have done this kind of campaign on safety rating and this kind of awareness they have created in the market. So all put together, and others also following. I mean, the OEMs are also following that kind of campaigns over a period of time. So safety is one of the major factor, I would say, which is setting the trend, which is one of the preferences which is coming all put together. Talking about, I will say, the comfort part.
Right.
Automatics are one of those which were earlier almost 3 to 5% of the industry. I mean, once it's talking about the total volume is happening. So this year, so far, almost 40% of the sales of overall vehicles which are getting sold in the country are automatic.
That was exactly what I was going to say, that safety, of course, is a huge aspect, but choices are certainly getting fancier. And with a growing demand in India, we, of course, see a very diverse want from the spectrum. But on that note, Ashok, I want to come to you because we understand that the auto sector had certainly taken a hit post-COVID. But talking about FY25, how do you see the growth panning out?
So I think let's start from COVID and pre-COVID. 2019 was, I think, one of the golden years for the entire auto industry. When you talk about, I think that's the year, that's a benchmark. And then you saw a complete sluggishness as far as the sales is concerned, 2020, 21, 22. And 22, then we saw a different kind of a phenomenon where There was a big challenge in terms of some chips which were not available. So in 23-24, I think the entire industry, especially in the passenger vehicle, sold somewhere around 42.5 lakh vehicles. And in 25, the anticipated growth is around 5 to 6%, which is sluggish. Now, if we talk about 5%, that looks very small. But in absolute numbers, I think that will cross a couple of countries' GDP. So it is not a small number. Let's see how this is going to happen. Because if the government really starts implementing scrappage policy in India, then in 25, at least 2.2 million vehicles will be out of road.
Okay.
So that is going to be a big boom for the auto industry.
All right.
And there'll be a different stance. So let's say from small car to mid segment to the bigger cars, and the powertrain that is changing from diesel, petrol to possibly CNG or electric vehicles. So that is the trend that we'll be seeing.
All right, that's interesting. But I just want to refer to a Car Edge report, and Anup, I want to take that question to you. Now, according to this report, the commercial vehicle segment, as it has predicted, is likely to witness a degrowth of 3 to 6% in FY25. Do you agree with that? And if that is, how would you explain the decline in volume?
See, there are multiple factors that had actually contributed to these phenomena that you're talking about. One, the baseline itself was set higher, like what Ashok just talked about, right? So post-COVID, the demand had gone up, the pent-up demand was there. So it ended up setting up a high baseline for you.
Right.
So that was one factor. Second is with the regulatory norms becoming quite stricter in terms of emissions, the vehicles are becoming quite definitely costlier, right? So, and then there was a liquidity crunch in terms of financing options, the interest rates going up. So there are multiple factors that actually have contributed towards these numbers going down. But the way we see it is now that there was a sluggishness in terms of the investment in infrastructure projects because this was an election year also. So now that the dust has settled on elections and things are moving up, we think that these numbers will again start going up as we move forward, whether we are talking about in terms of specifically in the commercial vehicle segment, these numbers will definitely start seeing an upswing and the demand will start coming up, and that is specifically in the later part of the year. Of course, now we are getting into the holiday season or the festival season that also definitely sees a certain downward trend, but the fourth quarter we'll definitely see a positive trend in terms of the demand. So that's how we see this industry shaping up.
All right. So Akshay, do you agree with what Anup and Ashok are saying? And if you were to take reference of this report, do you think that there could be a possible turnaround when it comes to the volume in the first half of FY25?
See, obviously the festive season is around the corner, and we need to kind of see what really happens in this 2 months that we have, the Dussehra and Diwali season. I do agree with with Anup as well as Ashok in terms of the baseline itself was too high. But I would like to add a different flavor onto all of this, right? I come from the EV industry. I focus on that very much, and that's the place where we're actually seeing growth in terms of all of these segments, whether it was the commercial vehicle specifically, right? With the kind of incentives that have been given by the government, we're seeing great numbers on the buses side. We also started seeing a lot of experimentation on industries, especially the cement mining industries, which have shorter distances for trucking to happen, right? And we have started seeing that grow much faster. If you also look at the three-wheeler commercial market, almost 50% of today's new sale is on EV, and that has grown significantly if you look at the last 2 years. And I don't see that is the challenge that we are seeing, especially on an EV perspective. Obviously, there has been a slight sluggishness on the overall growth numbers, but I think we are moving in the right direction because we'll have less emission-free vehicles coming on road.
Yeah, I'm sure you want to make a point. Yes.
Akshay, you might have some viewpoint, but as far as EV is concerned, why are we always so bullish only about EV? Why can't we talk about some other mode of fueling? I mean, why can't we talk about bio-CNG? Why can't we talk about hydrogen? Why are we only emphasizing on EVs? That's one of the questions that I have. When we talk about EVs, I think most of the time what I feel is that it is shoved down your throat.
Okay, so especially let's go to 2-3 tier cities, right? Do I have CNG available in that city? No, right? The arbitrage that I can create by moving from petrol to EV without CNG in between is significant, right? And the trends that I've been seeing, because I work with one of the largest vehicle OEMs across 3-wheelers and 2-wheelers markets, literally everyone over there, we have started seeing trends where there are vehicles sold much more in these markets as compared to tier 1 and tier 2 cities.
So if I may ask you one question.
That is the arbitrage that's actually happening, and that is why you see that happening. Second, one is the distribution problem with CNG actually in these markets. The second problem is when you're talking of biofuels like ethanol, etc. If it makes bio-CNG also. If you look at ethanol, let me first talk about ethanol. In India, we grow ethanol by putting water, like spending water, which is also a scarce resource within the country. I come from Bangalore. We order tankers literally every day to just take bath and drink water. So that is where I don't want another precious resource to be used to create another form of fuel. I do agree that it will be much more cleaner to have this. And in the long run, if you're looking at electric vehicles, the net emission that I'm trying to save, with obviously the push with the solar coming in from the Prime Minister, where every house will also have EV, the overall mix kind of makes sense. At least not now, but if we don't start today and create that impetus, I don't think that we'll be in a state where we'll be able to meet this altogether. And it also finally helps fiscal deficit, right? Because oil in itself is what we import, and we don't want to get into that.
Right.
Akshay, I think let's understand one thing. I am not just against TVs. What I'm saying is, why can't we have a balance when it comes to powertrain? I'm saying today our focus is only on EVs. Why can't we have bio-CNG? Why can't we have E20 petrol? That will also, if you actually do maths of how EVs are more sustainable, or if we are able to balance EVs, ethanol, bio-CNG, hydrogen, because 70% of the consumption happens on the highways.
Correct.
Today also.
You're absolutely right.
How much is that EV going to save as far as the pollution is concerned? So that's my question.
Right. Let's allow Anoop also to make his point.
We sit on the data side, by the way. We are absolutely fuel agnostic, and we have seen all kind of fuel types. And because our solution is now available in 17 countries, we are seeing that the kind of advanced or developed countries, the way they are right now going about the whole sustainability. Because when it comes to EV, it is all about sustainability and bringing down greenhouse gases and host of other narrative that comes along with it. But the point that I have is like what my dear friend Ashok said is that there has to be a concentrated effort in terms of ensuring that the right kind of fuel type is available for the right kind of application, rather than just focus on one set of fuel type, which is EV, which is not going to work out, because at the end of the day you have to look at the infrastructural requirements that are there. Like Akshay said, that there is a challenge in terms of making CNG available. There is a challenge towards making the charging stations also available in the urban areas where your real estate is so costly. Okay, so there are going to be different set of challenges that are going to come up. The way we see it in terms of fuel efficiencies and the kind of emissions that each and every fuel type brings in, we feel that the reliability and the serviceability has to be taken into consideration, and then these decisions and policy framework should happen rather than just one area that should be pushed.
Right. So I want to take the next question to you, Rajiv, to understand how much of a tilt do you see in the passenger and commercial segments towards electric vehicles, and in terms of sales and marketing strategies, do you think they are evolving in that direction?
So rather I would say that EV are the trends which are supported by the government in a very big way. But once it comes to the sales and marketing strategy part, I can say that we are shifting more towards the digital awareness, digital engagement with the customer. Is more of I would say that educating the customer and creating the awareness between the customer that how and what way is going to benefit, having more tie-ups with the B2B companies, I mean where the zero emission or this kind of they are part of that kind of campaigns. So that is, I think, that is a shift which is happening at this point of time. And more of the partnership and collaboration is required with the companies. I mean, the big companies who are giving that kind of subscription and that kind of option to the customer. So overall is going to take care and shift happen in terms of there are a lot of, I would say that, there is in the market, most of the people will think so that initial investment is very high. So that kind of, that over period of time, how it's going to save the cost, and it's not something is affordable. It's something having the alternate options and also creating awareness and I mean to say infrastructure as well. I think this kind of marketing strategy or shift is happening, which will take some time, but over period of time, these all things, yes, as Ashok and Anup rightly said, over period of time, that will also be an option. So we cannot ignore EV. It will be time-taking
Fair
thing,
enough.
but it's going to be happen.
So there are certain hiccups and work is
There are.
in progress in that direction.
Agreed.
Okay.
And OEMs, or if you look at the narrative from OEMs, is they know that there is a lot of anxiety in the consumer mindset in terms of range, in terms of performance, in terms of the reliability of these. So they're putting a lot of marketing effort to bring that or ease that out, right? But that has to be also complemented along with the infrastructure. Like there is
I just want to add, Anup, see, electricity is distributed here in this studio that we are talking to, right? So the distribution of electricity has happened. 80% of charging, because I also sit on a lot of data, I'm a tech first company, and 80% of all charging, if you look at global trends as well, where like players like countries like Norway, etc., where there is almost 70% of vehicles which are EV, people tend to charge 80 to 85% of the times at home. And there are three solutions for charging: at home, at your community, like your housing society or your workplace, and finally the public infrastructure. There's a lot of emphasis given in the media for public infrastructure because it has to happen at a collaborative basis. But there are vehicle OEMs who are giving you personal charge points where you can actually charge 80% of the times. Obviously, the application for you to maybe go from city to city kind of gets limited in that way. But you and me are traveling to office at most of the times.
Right.
I have never, I don't drive to another city doing 400 kilometers, right? So that is the reason why I just need infrastructure at home. And if you look at the 2, 3, and even 4-wheeler market, your house has roughly around 5 kilowatt of load available. And that is more than enough for you to charge a 2-wheeler, which is a 2 kilowatt, 3-wheeler which is at 7 kilowatt, and finally a 4-wheeler which is at 30 kilowatt. So your
Right.
infrastructure
Right.
is
But
there. But
fact is that we are not there yet.
we are not there yet, and the mix will continue. I'm not saying that tomorrow there's going to be EV. The mix will continue, and even in the future it will continue. Right?
Right.
It's not that it will not.
Having said that, while we are making our way in that direction, the sustainability aspect certainly remains big, and I'm going to come to that in greater detail. But before that, Anup, I also want to understand from you on the data analytics angle, in terms of how it helps us understand vehicle performance and consumer preferences both, given the kind of automation that has now kicked in across vehicles, and also how it is helping manufacturers refine their offerings.
So data is playing a role in big time. So if you look at the most popular term that is coming up is SDV, or software defined vehicles. There is a lot of content that is being added by the OEMs to get a real time insight. Now there are two aspects to it. If you look at it from the consumer standpoint, they have a lot better visibility on a component level as to how vehicles are performing, and in terms of what are the impeding issues that are there with the vehicle, which they should go about fixing it rather than they seeing a catastrophic failure. In case of EV, that is a big problem. Okay, so that's the kind of a visibility that now customers have started getting. But on the OEM side, there is a much bigger stake that they have in terms of the real world performance usage of these vehicles. They understand under what conditions and what ambient factors these vehicles are typically performing in a certain way, and they are able to improve the reliability as well as improve the component level warranty. They are able to bring it down. They are making even the tier 1 suppliers a major stakeholder using data and giving them a better insight as to how they can also improve, because it's not only about bringing down the warranty cost, it is all about improving the reliability and the discomfort that customer faces when the vehicle breaks down. So these are the aspects that this whole world is changing. Your turnaround time, your real estate or service station is limited. How do you have a more number of vehicles serviced in a shorter span of time using the real estate in a much effective way? So all these things is something that these software defined vehicles are now enabling, and it opening a new window of opportunity for OEMs, customers, service stations, and host of other things. We believe that if this data is utilized in a right way, then even government can benefit in terms of bringing the infrastructure, understanding which all areas there are enough congestion points, data points, and how they have to regulate the traffic, and all those kind of things can be regulated in a much better way.
Right.
So there is a whole lot of things that are yet unexplored. And
Right, but as manufacturers, how are we innovating on that front, especially if the eventual goal, as you very strongly emphasize, is the EV way? Then how are we working towards it?
See, in the EV era, it is technology first. So SDV is starting with ICE vehicles, but the number of components that are there in your electric vehicle has become 1/10 of what it was in your ICE vehicle. So it has become an electronic first vehicle, right? And it is sending a lot of data. It is like your cell phones which were at, or landlines which became cell phone today, and it is sending so much data where you can improvise and do a lot more things, right, with this vehicle. So that is what is happening in the EV era. And obviously there are digital twins which are happening with the help of players like Anup, but there is also the connectivity that is being built from the infrastructure layer point of view. So energy in the future cannot be in a place where it gets deficit. So you will be able to charge during non-peak hours, during peak hours, and there will be people who will be able to orchestrate it and also help the government to make that decision in terms of when to produce, not to produce. India's grid was made very recently as compared to any of the Western countries. So we actually have a national grid, and then we have regional grids kind of there. So it kind of gives you that access to buy electricity also at any given point of time from anywhere. So those are the kind of technologies that vehicle OEMs are already talking of. And the final piece that I want to tell you is, most of the distribution that has happened in the ICE era was a wholesaler distribution market, right? I have sold it to a wholesaler or a dealer, and as a vehicle OEM, I don't even know who's my end consumer, right? I would only the dealer would service it, and he would be the one who would be contacting you for the service, etc. But with the new era of software first vehicles kind of coming in play, vehicle OEMs can actually think of it like a retail business where they can talk to you at the end place. And players like Kazam kind of come in play because we are anyways coming to you as a charging player who you have to actually use from an application and open the app every day. So you're already connecting on a day-to-day basis, right? You're interacting with that vehicle OEM in some way or the other. So I think the future is that the vehicle OEM is coming closer and closer to you as a consumer, and they need that whole technology and data layer to kind of ensure that that happens. And new age companies are hence able to sell a lot more because they're already reaching you as the end consumer instead of going through a retail route.
Okay, I want to get Ashok's point of view on this, and you make your point after that.
So first and foremost,
because Ashok, I also want to say that both manufacturers and the government are eventually working towards sustainable solutions. So as manufacturers primarily, how do you bridge this gap?
So firstly, thanks to Anup and his company, because the way the data is going to come to us, my life will become quite simpler and easy. So thank you. Coming to what Akshay is mentioning, I completely agree. The kind of information now which is available with the manufacturer is amazing. But also at the same time, I think it is very important from business standpoint or from the personal standpoint. You gave the example of, I think, which country you were talking about? Norway. So let's compare apple to apple. Norway is not the right example for us because if we take that example, then only 50 lakh people or maybe 1 crore people will fall in that category. Is that the market that we are going to serve? One. Secondly, I'm myself using EV at this point of time. But is that my first car? No. Because the anxiety levels are much higher whenever you have a situation. Especially when it was raining, I did not take out even a single car. I don't know how it is going to behave. When you're going for intercity, can you imagine on a highway somebody driving with the lights off in the evening with the anxiety that at what point possibly the charge will go off? And lastly, we are talking about telematics, we are talking about a lot of other factors, but trust me, sometimes driving habits are very different. You are ascertaining a certain range based on a certain condition. The odometer shows that the vehicle will go for 20 kilometers. but actually, when it starts tripping down, in 5 kilometers, the charge will be over. So all these anxiety, I think it is over a period of time that it has to be taken care of. Second, my only request is, yes, sustainability is very important, but from the business standpoint and also from the balancing standpoint. It cannot be that we are only talking about electric vehicles. We should be talking about bio-CNG, ethanol, or other hydrogen, etc., which is available as of now.
Right.
See, well, both of them are right, and very interesting example he gave, and that is very, very important. And I'll top it up to the Akshay's point also, is that in the world of EV, while you have 1/10 of the part, it is not the singular factor that impacts the performance of the vehicle. Unlike ICE, ambient condition has a significant play in terms of the performance of the vehicle. We all know the optimal temperature under which EVs must operate for you to get the best performance. So your sunrise and sunset patterns have significant impact. Your use of AC is significant factor. Your number of passengers that are sitting inside the vehicle has a significant impact. Your rolling resistance.
That eventually, in terms of design and the way passenger vehicles are now turning out, the impact of the end goal of EV has a play in it.
So I think first I just want to touch is, even when you talk about just two-wheelers, our market, India is a 300 million vehicle market, okay? And out of that 300 million, 270 million are actually two and three-wheelers. It's just the balance 30, which is actually four-wheelers and the rest, right? So we are actually talking about a very small subset when you're talking of four-wheelers and its adoption to EV, because not the middle class India is really thinking about that four-wheeler to move to EV, and in terms of the curve of adoption, right? There's a curve of adoption. We're too early, too nascent when it comes to four-wheelers, but we've already started seeing that in two-wheelers and three-wheelers, where 50%, as I said, 50% of vehicles already three-wheelers are EVs, right? So the trend that I see is that certain segments will adopt much faster. There will be cohesiveness in terms of the fueling type that will exist for different applications. Like if I want to be in a four-wheeler and I do long distances, then definitely I do need to be on an petrol or a much easier access, and I may be a laggard in terms of adopting to EV, which is completely fine. But I think eventuality in 2035 or 2030, right, is a place where every consumer will be talking about adopting to an EV. If you look at the general trend, obviously there is only 2% adoption to EV in four-wheeler segment, but the trend is that 10% people are actually searching about EV in terms of the total volume. So there is obviously definitely a trend that is coming in, and I think that will continue. There is also the government push that is kind of coming in terms of the subsidy, the incentives that are there, right, in this market. It has gone to the segments where we feel that we will be very, very strong. And I feel that especially 2-3-wheeler market is an Indian phenomena. We will end up exporting a lot of this across India. And because we make one of the best products in this category, the 2-3-wheeler, it is also very beneficial for the country in terms of making that right move, right? So I think that would be my last
All right.
note.
I think it's been a very interesting discussion so far, and I particularly like panels where there are so many diverse opinions coming in. So I want to thank all you gentlemen for being a part of this. Of course, we have to slip into a short commercial break for all our viewers, but we'll be back on the other side as discussions in the roadmap for the auto sector continues. Thank you.